Yo. Everyone, and welcome to Anime Fanfic for you. We're back with another part of What If Issei was betrayed by everybody and was the son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Now, let's start the part 4, being Sekvara, Lyta, Ria, Kurumi, who we're speaking about one person, and that was Nero. The reason for this is because of their feeling towards him and to start their relationship with him. They know that Nero didn't expect was that she knows Nero and Kurumi in her childhood. Sekvara, I still can't believe that Issei thought we would be together again, C-chan, she said happily. Lyta, I still don't understand how you guys know each other, so could you please explain to us? She said, wanting context on how they know each other. Ria, that right, you two still haven't explained how you guys know each other, she wanted answers as well. Sekvara, well then it all started when. Flashback. Commercial District 10 years ago. A small blonde girl of years old who wears a white dress under a large green raincoat that has a tail with a pink place to be opened since it was closed. Sekvara, just a few more minutes and finally be able to buy it. The little girl commented excitedly. At that moment the door of the place opened after the little girl spoke. This excited the little girl, who ran into the place to look for what she wanted to buy so much. Moments later. The little girl had already gone all over the store, but she didn't find the product she was looking for so much, but she still didn't lose hope. Sekvara, it's not, I don't see it anywhere, I guess the person in charge of the place has it in the box, the little girl said to herself to go where the manager was standing and asked her about what she was looking for. Manager, I think I still have one, saved the saleswoman of the place happily, and then went to a nearby park and sat on a bench that was empty, finally the next number that I needed to read. The little girl began to slowly open the manga, as if it were a treasure or something sacred. The emotion of the little girl was more than evident. Since she did not read any manga, she was going to read her favorite manga, that was the Gundam franchise. She was a big fan of mecha, despite being a girl. That's why she had waited patiently outside the manga store to buy it. It was the best day of his life, good weather after the rain, a few goodies to eat during she reading that she bought when he came to the park, and his favorite manga to read. If it was more than obvious, it would be the best day of his life, and nothing could ruin it. Issei, we're sorry. Exclaimed a boy with brown hair who has short hair along with a girl with black hair and a short bob haircut with red eye. It bowed apologies. Both had the same age as the little blonde girl. We're sorry that we hit you with my ball. It's just that I was very excited to come to the park to kick my ball very hard. Catch the ball. They couldn't finish talking since the girl who had gotten hit with the ball gave them a murderous look. Sekvara, get lost. She exclaimed with angry to restart her reading, but no. Read, since the ink-like paper was ruined. At that moment in the little blonde-haired girl's eyes, small tears began to form as she clenched her fists because of the frustration she felt. It had cost her so much. Sekvara Kognu sniff, the angry and sad girl moaned. Issei, hey, don't cry, sorry, I didn't want to throw it at your manga, it was an accident, I'm sorry. Said the nervous boy. Kurumi, the little girl, began to check in her backpack and took something out here. I'm very sorry for what my friend did to your manga, so I'll give you this manga that I brought with me. I was going to read it soon with Nero. I mean Issei-kun, but I'll give it to you, but please don't cry. The boy was going to stop his friend and Sekvara, it can't be. Exclaimed the girl while she wipes her tears, it's the same one I bought a while ago. The person in charge of the place told me that she sold me the last one, how can it be that you have another copy? Kurumi, I live in the district and my mom bought it for me days because I did great and all. I have a lot of chores at home, but don't cry, you can keep it. Sekvara, thank you, you are very kind, said the little girl embarrassed as she covered her face with the manga. Kurumi, I'm glad you're not sad anymore, well I'm going goodbye, the little girl said, taking the boy hand to go play somewhere else with the ball. Issei, and again I'm sorry for the manga. The boy gave a sad expression as he couldn't read the manga with his best friend. Sekvara, wait. The blonde girl screams, would you guys like to read this manga with me? It will be more fun if we read it together, she commented embarrassed. Well, the boy and girl both looked at each other before having big smile of happiness. Issei, Kurumi, of course. They both exclaimed with great happiness, going to sit next to the girl. Sekvara, by the way, what's your names? Kurumi, my name is Kurumi, but you can call me Rumi if you want, she said with a smile. Issei, my name is Issei, but you can call me Ice or Nero, that my nickname if you like, the boy exclaimed with a smile, and what is yours? Sekvara, but you can tell me C-chan since you two want me to call both of you Rumi and Nero, the little girl showed up timidly. Issei, nice to meet, said as he took Issei's hand as Kurumi joined the handshake. The minutes passed and the couple of children can how the sweets were over. Flashback ends. Kurumi, that sure takes me back, she said, remember when she and Nero were children and kept him away from Arena. Ria, it's a lovely story, Sekvara saw harem, and as head of the harem, we should come in a mutual understanding. Lied is she right? You know I don't wish to act like the Gremory when they fight over him. Like a mere item. Garumi, that true they don't appreciate him. And if they're more we have to have a talk with them first, she said as she looked at Sekvara. Sekvara, I'm glad we came to an understanding. She said with a nod before looking out in the window. I wonder what you're up now. Began to regain consciousness was that his body was wrapped in something warm and soft. It was like a soft bed was possible. After all, he was in a dungeon. Nero mind, what the hell is happening? If I'm not mistaken, this feeling is that of a bed. What is a bed doing in this horrible and deep abyss? He thought, being very confused, so Nero tried to move his right hand to see if he was not wrong, but he noticed how for some strange moved, he could not move even his arm, and he felt a strange and warm feeling that he did not felt for a long time when he was far from his Sekvara. A nice moan was heard when Nero pressed a little with his right hand, and he woke up completely knowing or understanding what was happening, although the first thing he saw was that he was indeed in a bed. Nero, it's okay, I'm not hallucinating, I'm really in a bed, he said looking around, although if vision was little since in that bed, some curtains hid it and above it, a light that Nero hadn't seen in a long time since he traveled into this hell, and now I was a few meters away from it. This is not normal. Where in Thor thunders am I? He said quite confused without being able to avoid the fingers of his right hand which needed a soft thing. Nero again those moans were heard again, and Nero without thinking about it not even 2 seconds, lifted the blanket that covered him revealing a beautiful completely naked blonde girl, clinging to his right arm, something that he did not understand, and when Nero looked at everything he noticed something. Nero, I'm also naked, he said when he saw himself devoid of clothes. Now I understand what Sekvara was talking about when she said to control my instincts, although the truth is not very easy, it's not impossible. Hey, you wake up, Nero was trying to wake up the girl. She complained, not wanting to get up, although Nero heard how she said words between her dreams, but it is still important for wanting to recover the mobility of his hand. Nero's skin is very soft like Sekvara's. Wait, it's not the time for comparisons. Hey, you, wake up for once. He said a little annoyed since she didn't let him move his arm, and no much as he tried, he didn't let go of him, and only let out some groans and moans when he felt how Nero's hand touched her body at some moments. Her sweet moans were heard from the contact, and Nero felt how his instincts began to bother him. Nero, calm down. It's not the time for that yet. Although at this moment you looks very helpless, almost dominated by his instincts. No. Stop, stay still, you must agree with that. He said, controlling himself so as not to make you his own at that moment, so he began to scream a little louder, hoping to quickly wake up the girl, failing at every opportunity. At the end, the new Nero gave one last warning, wake up once and for all, stupid vampire princess. He said, extremely angry, to ward off his instincts, in addition to activating his ability lighting field that gave a powerful shock to you. She received the discharges and quickly released her grip on Nero's arm, but when she released him, she opened her eyes as she twisted a little when she felt that electricity still run a little through her body. Nero, she said when she saw the boy, who looked at her a little angry until he relaxed. Nero, yeah, good morning, he said with a smile, already having driven away his instincts, but it didn't last long since you jumped clinging to the boy's chest, something he didn't expect her to reaction, until he noticed how his chest got wet, because you began to cry in his chest, chasing away his instinct. He focused on calming the sadness and worry of the girl. Sorry, you didn't really want it to worry. I'm sorry, he said as he brought her closer to him, and he squeezed his grip more. I'm very worried about Issei, he said even in tears, but he felt happy to hear him speak, so they both stayed in that hug for some more time, until you had finally managed to calm her concern. Issei, everything has already passed, he said as he took the blanket and covered you with it. Tell me what has happened since I passed out, he said, hoping that she would tell him. Where were they? Or what was going on? What happened after he defeated the Hydra? Was his real question since he was full of his doubts. After you collapsed on the ground full of wounds, she said, beginning to narrate all the events that had occurred, being that when she approached she was relieved that he was healing from the damage, as a sound had been heard in the room, being that the door was beginning to open. For a moment I thought there would more enemies, and I decided to protect you with everything I had. But for the longer that happened, nothing came out of there, she said, continuing with what had happened, and continued telling him that when he was a little better, she would inspect the room with a little of fear, but she had no other choice, because Nero's life was in danger, so you had given a little of the ambrosia, that did not have much effect, being that the Hydra attack was impregnated with a strong poison that fought against the ambrosia. Behind the door was the mansion of the Liberators. Nero, I see we are in the Liberators' lair, he said, looking around, while you continued. The place was huge, but I found this bed, you said, well caressed. She continued, since she had not found any enemy. You told him how she had taken him very carefully to the bed where she laid him down and made him take a little more of the ambrosia, and when he took it, the danger has passed thanks to the help of the ambrosia, and his devil healing was slowly regenerating after having Entered that room, even knowing that he was well you had decided to stay next to Nero, and having relaxed from the fear that had happened, she had fallen to sleep in his arms. Nero, I see, you were taking care of me all this time, thanks you, he said, raising his hand to caress the head of the girl who smiled for the affection. UMN. She said, enjoying the caress, and her cheeks were dyed a nice pink, and that caused a smile in Nero, who for some reason felt happy to see her like that. Nero, hey you, I still wonder something else, he said, calling the girl's attention. Why am I naked? He said, a little confused, since in what you had told him, he hoped that she had not abused him while he slept or something similar, since they were just starting a relationship between the two. But he did not plan to do that kind of thing shortly after meeting her. He would have expected both of them to enjoy the moment. You were dirty, so I cleaned you, she said, showing a piece of clothes that he had on the side of the bed, although Nero noticed how she licked her lips. Nero, I can understand that, but why did you lick your lips? He said, a little scared that she did something, since she only did that when she sucked his blood. Well, leaving that aside, tell me, why were you also naked? Foo, she laughed a bit funny. Nero, wait, what are you laughing at? He asked, very confused. Did you do anything to me while I was sleeping? And stop licking your lips. For a while more Nero began an interrogation with you being this, only answered him with a suggestive and sensual look, so Nero, understanding that she would not tell him anything. He decided to start investigating the place, not without first looking for some clothes, but it was not necessary, since you had found some clothes in her investigation, being different clothes of men and women from different sizes, that implied that there were more liberators who lived in this labyrinth. Once well dressed, Nero checked the state of Donner and Schlag and Spiral, which had been brought by you. Then Nero mind, well, Donner, Schlag and Spiral are in perfect condition, but the Crystal of God is releasing very little ambrosia. It is possible that this is its last moments. He thought, a little sad, since this liquid had helped him on many occasions. Nero, hey you, let's go, we have to inspect the place, but remember to be careful with the traps. He said, turning to see the girl who was only wearing a white shirt. I think it's too big, we'll have to do something about it, he said, repressing his desire to assault you. Said a groan as an affirmation, since you was quite small for the shirt she was wearing, being that Nero compared her to Kaneko, thinking that they were the same height, since the shirt could cover almost her entire body, although she showed her beautiful legs. Nero, well, come on, we may discover something in that mansion over there, he said, pointing to an address where you could see a mansion of an old style. When I woke up I really thought it was the sunlight, but it seems that it's not like that, he said, quite impressed, since he really thought it was. At night the lights go out, and it seems as if stars appear suddenly, she said, surprising Nero. Nero, wow, that sounds very interesting, I wonder who was the one who managed to create that, he said, very interested. Could it have been the Liberators? It was more a question than an affirmation. Nero, if you are right, it is very possible that the Liberators created this dungeon, but I wonder what they had to do to recreate something like this, he said, looking at the ceiling where that bright light illuminated everything around him, being that he could notice a waterfall and an artificial river, although what interests him the most is that in the water there were several and very different types of fish. Thank goodness now I can eat something more that is not a monster. He said, somewhat relieved, continuing his walk in the direction of the mansion, where near this one he could notice there was a farm, thinking that some fresh vegetables would be fine, although this one didn't have seeds or something to plant. Ah well, we have water. Fish, I still have monster meat and only a few of those fruits of those trees, he said, remembering that he had kept them in the Devil Bringer, although I left that aside since they had reached their goal. You investigate a little, since most of the doors are closed, he said, and Nero looked at the place. Nero, I see, anyway, keep your guard up, we don't know if there will be any special trap, he said, and she nodded. They both stood right in front of the gate. Above it were some letters named Paradise, and calmly opening the door of the place. They entered the mansion as the two analyzed completely in case of feeling something strange. However, not feeling anything out of place, they began the exploration, being that Nero noticed how big that mansion was, calculating at least 3 floors to travel, being that he decided to start on the first floor. On the first floor there was a thick carpet, a fireplace, and a fully furnished room, thing that Nero missed a lot, since the whole place was in optimal conditions to be inhabited by someone, although according to his ability sense presence, there was no one else in that place besides you, not finding anyone other than them. But it seemed strange that all the furniture and some other utensils were in perfect condition, but Nero only let it go if there was someone there. He would only apologize for his interference, since he still kept a little of that side of him. Both continued their inspection at the end of the first floor, but a door caught their attention, being that when they opened it, they found that it led to the backyard of the mansion, and in this one, there was a kind of fountain with a lion statue, where Nero and you noticed that it had a magic circle, and when checking it, only increased the temperature of the water, which surprised Nero, thinking of only one possibility. Nero, this is not a dream, right? He asked a little incredulously, and a smile is formed on his face. this basically an outdoor bathroom, at last a bathroom. I don't know how long has it been since I took a bath. He said, full of happiness, since all the time since he challenged this hell, he had not been able to worry about his personal hygiene, since what mattered most to him was to kill all possible monsters and conquer this place. He was Japanese. Right, after all, and a good bath would never be wasted, so once they finished the investigation, this one would take a long and relaxing bath. You, Nero, do you want us to bathe together? She said with a happy smile, and Nero was very focused in the bathroom. Nero, sorry you. I want bathe alone. He said, since he really just wanted to enjoy a quiet bath. You Mao, she said, a little angry since she really wanted to bathe with him. When they both finished checking the place, they returned to the interior of the mansion, where they went up to the second floor, where they found a library and a workshop of some kind, since they could not access the last one. When they found their door completely sealed, not being able to completely check the place, they continued their investigation on the underground floor, where they saw an individual room, to which they entered without much doubt. In the room, what seemed to be gathering with no table, just 10 stone chairs in a circle with a magic circle that was in the middle of the chairs. The magic circle was average at least 8 meters, and it seemed quite complex for a magic circle. Although what caught their attention the most was the person sitting on one of the stone chairs. The person, for obvious reasons, was dead. After all, you could see only his bones. He wore a black tunic with some details in gold, but although he was in bones, his tunic looked very clean, not looking like he had died a long time ago, but he knew that to be in bones for a while had passed. Nero could almost think that it was an accessory of some kind of haunted house, but he knew that this is the supernatural world. The man's skeleton was in a very relaxed position. The basins were empty. A low look as he looked at both the magic circle and the corpse, and then the other chairs, and could not understand why he had chosen this room, having his living room or his bedroom. Nero, I don't understand. Why did you choose to stay in that chair? Wasn't it better to die in bed where he could rest at least a little more? He asked no one in particular. After all, neither you or himself could give him a correct answer. This is really very suspicious. What should we do? He asked, looking at his partner. You, I don't really know, it seems suspicious. What will you do? She said, since she completely trusted the boy, but she was really worried that something bad could happen to him. Nero, well, if we want to find a way out this room, our best option. My ability to transmutation couldn't open the doors that were closed, so this is all we have left. You, let's go to the circle. I think that will answer all our questions. I'll count on you if something bad happens, he said, looking at the girl. You, let's go, Nero. She said, ready to help him. Slowly, Nero and you began to walk where the magic circle, remaining alert for anything that could happen. When they reached the center of the circle, the whole room was illuminated by a very bright yellow light. Due to this, Nero and you closed their eyes, and a second later they felt as if something invaded their head, as flashbacks passed through their mind, all from the time where he was in the labyrinth until when he reached the Hydra. When the images stopped looking, the magic circle began to decrease in intensity, allowing both him and you to open their eyes, and when Nero opened his eye in front of them, they found themselves surrounded by 10 individuals, all dressed in clothing. Even the skeleton had the image of a young man dressed in that black robe. There were more, such as a beautiful girl with blonde hair, blue eyes and a petite figure, while wearing a white dress and having her hair into a ponytail. Next to her was a beautiful woman in her early 20s with wavy emerald green hair with jade red eyes. She had a slender body along with very voluptuous breasts, as her ears were fin-shaped ears and webbing between her fingers, while wearing blue and white bikini, a mini skirt in the same color, and a large belt that carries a beautiful sword with an elaborate crossguard design. While have a black and white tricorn cap. Next was a young man with sky blue hair that was braided on one side over his right eye and bangs, who was in his 20s, who had a well-toned physique, as his had pointed ears with swarthy red skin and red eyes. His attire consisted of white pants, a white muscle shirt and a white muffler with flower patterns sewn onto it. Next is a man in his 20s with a massive frame. He had spiky rust red hair and rust red eyes that were sharp as a hawk, as he wears a faded robe with a white slash over it. Next was a beautiful young woman in her 20s with long silver hair with jade green eyes with light pink lips with long pointed ears, while wearing a white dress that transparent along the clavicle and shoulders, as she wears a crown made of flowers. Next was an adult man in his 30s, but looks much older, who had a shaved head while wear armor, but had a staff on his hands with white clothing as his bottom half. The another 3 were different than 7, such as you being impacted by a young man who had spiked blonde hair and red eye just like you. As Nero looked at her, she has tears falling from her eyes. The man was wearing a black button-up shirt, along with black jackets and black pants. Give a nice smile. The next person was a young lady with a slim body, long hair that reaches her waist, and purple eyes. Well, wears a pure white dress with black lines with open sleeves. And the final person was a tall, handsome man with blue eyes, a youthful face, and slicked back white hair. He has a purple Victorian outfit with a white cravat, a large red jewel around his neck, and a monocle over his left eye. The magic circle still shone a little, enough to illuminate the room. Nero and you gaze at everyone who were sitting there until the black hair man spoke. Black hair man, we congratulate you. You have overcome the harsh trail. My name is Oscar Orcus, and everyone you see here are members of the Liberators, and we were the one who created this labyrinth. I suppose everyone in the world don't know of us anymore, other than just being legends. He sadly, along with everyone, as Nero was surprised that everyone in this room is part of the Liberators. And creator of that place, although he wanted to ask questions. By the way, he said, calling their attention. Please save us the questions. This is nothing more than a recording that we left behind, so unfortunately we cannot answer any of your questions. Now everyone else may introduce themselves, he said, and Nero had already suspected it. Blonde hair girl Yahoo. I'm the astonishingly beautiful genius sorceress Milady Ryson-chan. For some reason Nero and you felt like she would be very annoying. Red hair man, I'm Naze Gruen Caliente. This person seemed pretty decent person to Nero, and you thought in unison. Green hair girl, hello there, I'm Myra Melusine. She spoke nicely like a older sister, but for some reason the two felt like she was wearing a mask. Sky blue hair man, I'm Vander Schnee. He spoke with pride to Nero. He knew this guise is a dragon. Sliver hair girl, I am Liudalis Haltina. It's a pleasure, has a majestic presence surrounding her. In reality, she hold a secret that the Nero and you shouldn't know, or else they would be gross out. Old man Lost Barn seemed to be an old man that see the harshness of the world that made Nero and you understand. Blonde hair man, greeting, I'm Diane Lead Galdia Vesperisho Avatari. He spoke with care that made you start tearing up seeing her uncle, and was wondering why did he put her here? Why is he here? And may another question, but felt the grip of Nero hand on her shoulder to reassure her. Nero looked at the man and felt no evil intent. White hair girl, and I am God, but you may call me by name Militia, and yes, I am the god of the Bible. To be more precise, the goddess of the Bible, the goddess of creation. Now this surprised Nero and you to think God was a woman. And she was part of the Liberators as well. White hair man, I guess I am the last one. My name is Sparta. I'm also known as the legendary Dark Knight. Now this was interesting to the both of them. You said it was just a legend, but turns out legends come true for Nero. When seeing him he felt happy, sad, filled with mixed emotions that were starting to worry you, so he act calm and wonder why he feels like this when he sees Sparta as he spoke to them. We want to tell those who got here to tell them the truth of the world, what we fought for against the calamities that interested Nero was very much. So we decided to leave this message and in this way convey that message. I want you to know what we were fighting and my story on why I rebelled against my own kind. The hologram of everyone began to tell them a totally different story from the one they heard about, or even those stories that you told him. Both listened attentively together. Although their revelations surprised you, the story infuriated Nero, although he suspected that something like this could have happened. The story of the world. Every human in the planet know of the supernatural world and live together in an era of peace, but peace does exist without fear, war. Death, one of the calamities Mundus, also known as King of Hell, and another title planned to take over the human world, that when the Liberator came to protect the world from them with the assistance of God, also known as Militia, first-generation angels. This surprised Nero and you that there were first-generation angels as they wondered about them. Militia explained. Militia, the first-generation angels, were created to protect and defended humankind from Mundus devils. They are different from the angels you know as Michael, Gabriel, etc. They are much stronger than them, being a match against even the gods, but sadly they have no emotion except one. But for now let us continue. Nero can't believe that the Michael was a second generation. After the angels we sent to defend them, a certain devil fought against his own kind for humanity. The devil was none other than Sparta, who joined their cause. After they sealed off the demon world they live a life filled with peace as Militia created Lucifer and meeting Trinity, aka Trahexa, who his origin story came to light to Nero and you. It turns out Trahexa is from a different world and she was sent into this world by a friend of hers. In her world there was a great evil that they defeated, but the price was Trahexa had to sacrifice her humanity to become a monster, and so her friend in old age sent her away and she arrived here where she and Militia were close friends, but one day everything fell apart. Trinity was being manipulated by Mundus, doing everything she can to hold herself back. Not to mention a devil has escaped and targeted Sparta family and killed Eva along with her unborn child in the belly. Sparta, that why this will be our last message, for I need to take revenge for Eve and my children, but I had a vision that my children will be reborn. This news made Nero frozen. One of my children will recreate rebellion from their own power. Sparta dropped the bomb and revealed his rebellion. That shocked you as she turned to look at Nero, who was holding rebellion, and noticed the comparison between Sparta as Nero had tears falling from his eyes from this news. So I like to leave a message to you. He had a gentle smile while looking at them. I'm sorry for failing you, but please forgive me for what I'm going to do, and I know of your past, but don't let it stop you from finding that happiness you deserve, and remember that I will always be watching you with your mother. Moments later, his image was cut off. That made Nero reach with tears. Nero, wait. Dad, please don't go. He said, but the image was gone as he fell to his knees as you hug him from behind. Loss, stand up, boy. We can't see you, but we understand what you're feeling, right? And we turned to look at the old man. Militia, wipe those tears away, child of Sparta, and look ahead and push forward, slap his face to not lose focus. Valetti, now this is the end of recording, but their second recording we probably did. She said not too sure about it, since it would be further in the future. Oscar, yeah, I can ask for Judeca assistance, he said. Well, the image of them were dimming down, but one of them spoke. Ian, lead, please, if you find a door in this labyrinth, rescue my niece, I entrusted her to you, and when you get the second record, I'll tell her the truth. Those were you, uncle, last word before vanishing. That left the two in shock of what they would ness. This left them filled with mixed feeling for Nero. It was that his father was Sparta well in hand, the sword was present from two special people. As for you, she was clinging on Nero's hand as she saw her find her and entrust her to him. They were given a moment to readjust their feeling before both getting up, and with a serious faces they walked slowly out of the room before finding the lower floor that was brightened by the room lights, but they ignored it as Nero stretches his hand towards you as nights were approaching. Nero, you, I'll hand this, I need the training, don't help either. This left you shock, but she wants to argue, but she saw Nero, please trust me. You, she sighed before backing some step away. I trust you, Nero. She had a smile before Nero tossed her something as she caught it as it was Nero's phone. Nero, hey, play a song for me to fight. It should be Ingvild's song playlist, she a friend of mine and is a great singer, not to mention I played the instrumental while she sings. He said remember Ingvild and knows she didn't betray him as much as he know into song and play a random song. Now playing. Nero begins to do some stretches before feeling something on his right eye as he touches it before rub it, then having his eyes closed before opening and activated a new power, whatever effect his right eye gave birth to a new one with power. Nero saw a line on the night as Nero grin as he runs towards them to cut those lines. Unknown location. We are currently seeing a strange technology along with scientists walk around as an old man was sitting on his chair bored while looking on his computer screen that showed DNA, along with different body of male to female, as he moved his was opened by a certain individuals. Doctor, how much longer do you need these stupid DNA from those lower life forms? Said a young man, but his voice sounded more older than his appearance show. Dr. Lord Ash, it's a pleasure. Did you bring me more DNA from those cheaters? He said, completely ignore Ash questions. Ash, stop calling me by that stupid name, that the Lucifer name for disguise that me and lust is in par of Aphrodite. But enough of that, call me by my title and name. He said, anger before tossing the DNA sample towards the doctor who caught it and examined it. Dr. Why, of course, Lord Loki. He said as Ash's appearance changed into Loki, the Norse god of mischief. Loki had an evil sway in the factions, now have their precious alliance faction was corrupted in the inside. Not to mention that were hid all their secret base. But Loki was more focused on the tube that hold humans inside. Loki, now doctor, when will the 11 experience be released? He asked, walk up to tube with the label Red and Weiss as the doctor approached the evil god. Doctor, very soon. But they need to adjust with their powers and have information data inside them. So what do you think of Red and Weiss? They're beautiful, right? They were just normal humans that we captured and redesigned their DNA, and were the only ones to match the power of Delia, the Red Dragon, Empress of Domination, and Scarlet, the Dragon of Dreams for Red, while Weiss was made of Valerie, the White Dragon, Empress Supremacy, and Office, the Dragon of Infinity. And both having Chaos Karma Dragon Tiamat. Loki was looking at them and noticed that Weiss was smaller, but noticed the amount of power she possesses, same with Red. Loki left to the next tube that contained two other with the name Night, and which each was beautiful, but had similar features to each other. But both were connected with Ols, you can see it's been successfully, both were normal citizens, including being sisters until being captured and experimented on, such as Night have DNA of Seraph and Cadre with goddess DNA, as well DNA from Bedelia and the Devil Knights. As for which she has DNA from Devils and Valkyrie Tiamat with the final DNA fairy. He spoke with pride. As Loki looked at the fairy with surprise. Gone for the longest time, and there was no report of them. Doctor, thank to Lord Rizavam we have made connection as he start the machine that start extracting the fairy power and life force, killing her and then dumping her out. Loki, what happens to the body? He asked, wondering where it gets dumped at. Doctor, the corpse are used to create artificial Cerberus. He then show how the body of the fairy enters into a machine that swallows the feral. He said, looking at the girl as he also saw the fairy DNA enter as well. And fairy DNA. As for beast, she must have DNA from those yokai. Doctor, yeah, vampire has vampire, fairy and finally devil, since it would be interesting. As for beast, yes, you're right of the yokai, but she surpasses them in combat as well as sage arts. Not to mention, she has also DNA of a famous person from Japan, she has a very killer nature. Loki, there's also 4 other tanks, but these are male versions. Dr. Ah, those they don't have any denier, they are just being fortified to be stronger members of Outriders. But the bigger tank is where I keep the strongest currently. He's not ready for combat for being too dangerous. He said, looking at the bigger tank. Loki, oh, what do you call this one? He said, look at this one with interest. Doctor, I call him Finity, he spoke with pride. A few hours later they continue to discuss more about their plans on corrupting the factions from inside, locate the ex-Red Dragon Emperor, since they don't know what he'll do. As well as trying to collect 2 swords from a legend named Spun. Quickly. We have an emergency. Her voice sounded panicked. Loki Ash, he got super annoyed. What do you want? I told you I was busy. RIAS phone, we know, but this is serious, it's Shiva, his third eye has been cut. She shouted that this honestly surprised everyone. Sure. RIAS phone, yes, please come, we're in the factions meeting. So please come quickly. Just like that, the phone was cut off. Everyone didn't know what to say. Someone cut Shiva third eye, how is that even impossible? Who could even do that? Loki, just what the hell is going on? Grand meeting hall. Everyone in the room was panicking. Everyone turned to look at the most powerful god of them all, Shiva, god of destruction. Everyone was worried for him as he was touching his third eye as it was bleeding. Meanwhile, Ash aka Loki was watching this. He wondered how the hell did Shiva's eye get damaged. He began to question what happened. Ash, Lord Shiva, could you tell me what the hell happened to you? How did you lose your eye? Everyone arrived and they began to explain. Shiva, I sent the presence of something dangerous. I was going to detect it, but then all of a sudden I saw it. Odd, and what did you see? Shiva, a demon is what I like to call it. It had white hair and weird blue eyes. When it saw me, I can't feel it anymore. It destroyed it. That thing is dangerous. We should not get close to that thing. Meanwhile, was wondering what the hell should he do right now. There's something out there stronger to be able to be agitated and came here in a rush. Michael, what's wrong? Raphael, can't you see we're in an important meeting? They're saying that the angels began to freeze and they immediately start to leave. They took Arena, Griselda, and Dulio with them. Something important. It's going on for the angels. ASH mind, what the hell is going with Nero and you? We currently see Nero fighting the Knight Igris, a large knight covered from head to toe in blood-red armor with a Y-shaped hole built into his helmet. He also wore a tattered red cape, wielded a massive red sword that was equal to him in height, and had a long red hair-like ornament extending out of the back of his helmet. Nero was fighting the knights pretty easily until he felt pain from his right eye. Sadly, the battle had to come to an end. As Nero caught Igris' sword, even if Nero's hand were bleeding, he threw, consisting of a jagged blade with a hook at the tip. Inside the crossguard contains a round gem. Attached to the pommel of grip is a long skeletal lanyard. Nero began to raise the sword up to see it beautiful as the lanyard began to slither around him. Until minutes later, it started wrapping around his left arm before piercing his shoulder. Nero, "Gah man, hurts like hell." He said, "Well, you watch this, worried, will now activate." A beautiful voice came out from the gem, leaving both of them in shock as Nero grinned. "Nero, who needs the stupid dragon gauntlet when you have a demon sword? Delia, you've been replaced now. Judeka, lend me your power." Judeka, analyze complete. Operation Gift, Royal Guard, Trickster, Shadow Extraction. She gave Nero new abilities, but it cost him to gasp air. Nero, damn, I just got 3 more abilities. Sweet Judeka, I'm starting to fall in love with you. For some reason that commented the giant golem. It seems this golem is a test for him and Judeka. Nero, hey Judeka, you're up. The whole master treatment surprised Nero. Nero, good morning to you, Judeka. He said as look at the golem, can you get rid of this guy? Judeka, there is a 100% chance of submission. This is no problem, master. This made Nero smile. Nero, let's rock. And just like that, symbols appeared into his eyes. When activating this, an earthquake began to happen all around the world. As for the people who were allies of, they only had grins. His power has increased even further. Meanwhile, anything and only tilted her head. You, Nero, are you done? She began to look at the golem, who wasn't even moving. Nero, yeah, I'm done, he said, looking at the golem who started breaking apart. I think Nero, he looks at Igris. It was a very strong night as there was a shadow around him. Red Commander Igris, if I have this guy as my servant. Nero thought this person must have been a liberator. Even after death he protected this place. Arise, when he started it failed. What? Judeka, it seems Igris is very stubborn, she said as you nodded as they look at the night. Nero, he began to turn to look at the throne. As he looked at Igris, the throne stopped protecting the seat of my father, who has left and try protecting me. The son of as Nero had grinned, while Judeka Jan shined while you touched Nero back while looking at Igris. The knight standard right in front of them in a shadow form. Igris walked towards Nero and began to kneel in front of Nero. As they see Igris' new appearance, a large knight with a light blue glow, jet black armor covering him from head to toe, a tattered black cape, and a long red hair-like ornament extending out of the back of his helmet. Nero, let's get my army settled up. And just like that, Nero went back towards the other knights and mages and extracted their shadows. 1 hour later. Nero and Yu went back to the room filled with chairs as Judeka instructed to stab her in the middle of the circle. Just like that, the circle started to glow and restart a new recording. That reveals half of the members of the Liberators, only leaving Oscar looks like an old man, as well as Melusine who looks like an old woman now, and Haltina and Diane Lead who still look young, but have freckles on their faces, showing them getting older. As Nero and Yu noticed that Militia was no longer there. Oscar, hello again, this is our second recording. As you can see, a few members are no longer here. I believe it's time to tell you what happened after we change history, and just like that the story began again. When the Liberators started to restart history, they made the new era around medieval time. Everyone in the world does not know about magic anymore, nor the supernatural. Thanks to Sparta's sacrifice, the world was brought, losing all her daughters who decided to fight the underworld, leave behind 3 first-generation angels, leaving her only with the second-generation angels, as they started to become more isolated, but still help the world as best they could. As for the Liberators, they started supporting humanity in the shadows even around the time of King Arthur era. Meanwhile, more events happen, causing some of the second-generation angels to fall and become fallen angels. Problem kept coming up one after another. And then Trinity wasn't able to contain her bloodlust anymore, leaving Militia to seal her friend away and call her Trahexa, and calling her the Beast of Apocalypse, to ensure no liberates her until a cure can be found, as 2 of her daughters made sure to keep watching of her in the seal, leaving only one of her first-generation daughters. Sadly, her own child Lucifer, and sealed Delia and Albedo into sacred gears. This left her with no strength of Sparta, and her name is Noint. Nero was surprised but not too sure on trusting an angel again. Angels are supposed to be strong in pair with gods, so she would be a great ally. Heaven. As they all look at the crystal that was shining red, then going back to blue before shattering and exposing the angel within the crystal, as she slapped her wings as the crystals fall from the sky, her beautiful silver hairless dress, which has metal plates covering both sides of her waist, as well as a winged helmet on her head, gauntlets on her arms and graves over her legs. She began to open her clear blue eyes. I've been inactive for how long? She spoke. Her beautiful voice sounded so majestic, but her expression was nothing but emotionless expression. Michael, it's been so long, Sister Noint. We have passed to a new era after the Great War. But I am glad to say that we have finally achieved peace. Noint, I see. She didn't say anything else, she just looked around her surroundings, seeing all the angels. Until she'd been hugged by Gabriel. Gabriel, I'm so glad to see you. Sister Noint, I must show you everything that you've been missing, she said, I have an important mission that does not involve all of you. And these, she took a minute before looking at Irina, these have more respect by everyone around you. He said to calm down the situation. Noint, sorry, but I speak the truth, she said, tilting her head to the side, not knowing if she said something wrong. They aren't. Hey. We are devoted followers of God and chose to become angels. You can't just think of us below you. She said, angrily pointing a sword against her, but then. Gosh, she let her scream as feathers began to engulf her. Noint saw how Irina pointed her sword at her and thought of it as a declaration of war, and she did not hesitate on sending her wings filled with disintegration to scar her. All the angels gasped in horror after seeing Irina, beat up form and scratch marks as she fall to the floor. Everyone rushed to help. I order you to cease your attack, she said. Ultimately this caused Noint to stop. The reason why Noint is because she's an angel with no feelings and only thinks of orders. The highest order is a divine order that God do those orders, but for a person who has no feelings, no emotions, she has never thought never doing those orders. Although her mind thought of something else, her mission, the last mission of their mother, become the guardian angel of the legendary Dark Knight, Sparta child. She stayed put, believing that she'll find him very soon. Nero and you. Haltina, now since you know the true story, this time we tell you about the calamities. Now Nero and you were paying attention, included Nero, Shadows and Judeka. There are 5 calamities. The first one is White Titan. It is a powerful creature that will destroy humanity with each passing step. Nero and you began to wonder how to defeat this giant. And I know what you're thinking. How do you defeat a giant? Well, the only weapon that can help is Excalibur, which sadly is back at the Lady of the Lake. Also, the Excalibur, you know in your history that the church has, is a fake made by Merlin himself. Now Nero felt the pressure. The only weapon capable of destroying that thing would be Excalibur. And the Excalibur, they know, is just a fake. Oh great, just great. Sadly, the only way to have Excalibur would be having fairies assist, and yes, they do exist. Sadly, they're not the most kind of fairies, you know. Sorry if I ruined your childhood. Nero couldn't believe fairy exist, and they were cruel, damn. Melusine, the next one would be Cathpalig, also known as Primate Murder, but you mustn't worry about him, because that to an ally Cathpalig has turned into a familiar by Merlin. Its appearance is now a squirrel creature. Nero and you sighed in relief, knowing that one of the 5 calamities was dealt with and turned into a familiar Horonic. Oscar next would be a calamity. You know Mundus currently he's sealed and cannot escape, but this doesn't mean his followers can get out. Be ready to fight his followers and devils. Nero had a smirk. That's what his business is for Devil May Cry, a business to kill devils. Dionlead the Fourth is known as 8 Thunder Gods. They're beings that come from another world. They are highly powerful. And not to mention they have an army, how many we do not know, but we recommend you to gather allies or at least have weapons for anti-army. We do not know gap if the portal is open. Now this one was troubling 8 members of Piece of Calamity. That's gonna be a tough opponent. Not to mention the army they have is unknown, including their strength, and what's worse is they have to watch the dimensional gap. This is just great. Nero knows Office and Scarlet will be lazy and not wants to do is fuck the world. Nero, and you froze up when hearing that. Yes, it's just like I said, she wants to fuck it and swallow it in her hole currently. Her location is unknown. What we do know is that she immortal for now. Nero, and you wanted to hit something. Do you think the last beast is a pervert that literally wants to fuck the planet? Dear God, what has the world turned into? Oscar, now we're near the end of the recording. Once the circle is done, you'll be obtaining the 7 great magic we possessed. Please make sure to adjust yourselves comfortable. All this information will overload your brains, but with this magic, you'll be able to surpass your limits. Now I think it's time for Dionlead to speak some words to his niece. And just like that, the rest of the members have disappeared, leaving behind only Dionlead, who began to scratch his cheek, not knowing what to say. Dionlead, Alacia. Long time no see. I wonder if saying that is a little wrong. I think that you are surely hating me. No, surely word like hate will not be enough at all. What I did, that's not it. This is not what I want to say. Even though I have been thinking of various things, now that the time has come to leave my last will, I cannot speak smoothly. While making a self-depreciating wry smile, Dionlead pulled himself together by clearing his throat. That's right. First let me say my thanks. Alacia. Surely, right now on your side there should be someone who you are trusting from the bottom of your heart. At the very least, that person must be a strong person who could obtain power, and as he could feel that Dionlead was looking at him. Dionlead, you. Child of Sparta there who is close to friend. Or do you become her family, or her comrade? I apologize that I cannot meet you directly with a bow. Nero, who was feel relieved as it's just a recording tightly his embrace on you who was leanest. Or else, perhaps you have already know the truth. Just why, that day, I hurt you and buried you inside that bottom of darkness. What kind of existence are you, and who is looking for you? But, for the sake of deceiving our race with certainty, I judged that I shouldn't tell you. I also thought that in the sealing room. That was why, after pretending to kill you at the palace, there was no doubt that there was also no time for him to talk with her. Just how filled with bitterness that choice that he made, it was shown by the strength of his hand clutching at the image. Dionlead, even so, it doesn't change that I had hurt you. I won't say anything like your forgiveness after this late. However, I want you to please believe only this. I want you to know this. His expression changed from anguish into an expression of smile so filled with a hopeless sadness. I love you, Alacia. I love you from the bottom of my heart. I have never thought of you as bothersome, not even for once. I thought of you as my daughter. You uncle. Dianaja-sama. I too thought of you like a father. That feeling was flowing down along with the tears that traced through her cheek, unable to form into words. But, the strength of the hand that was clutching Nero's hand conveyed that feeling more than anything. Dionlead, I'm sorry that I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry that I couldn't do anything but to entrust you to someone in the future. I'm sorry that I act like a pathetic Lead's last will. But, such thing was irrelevant. You couldn't help but yell no matter what. Something shining was gathering at the corner of Dionlead's eyes. But, he didn't let that flow by any means. While enduring tightly, he spun words toward his beloved daughter with all his heart. Dionlead him and say, please take care of my daughter. It was the partner that Alacia chose. Surely, him at the other side of the image. By any chance, there might be the you of the past at the direction of his gaze. It will be the time soon. There are more things that I want to talk, various things that I want to convey, but our artifact cannot last any longer. You know, I don't want to Oji-sa, Otu-sama. Her uncle, no, her father's deep affection, and that tragically tough resolve fiercely shook Yu's heart. Indescribable feelings were overflowing out. As for Nero, there was a bit of tears in his eyes. Dionlead, I cannot be on your side anymore, but even if this life is about to run out, I'll continue to pray. Alacia. My beloved daughter. I wish for infinite happiness to shower above your head. For you to walk a path that is warmer than sunlight and gentler than moonlight. You Otu-sama. Nero hug her close. Dionlead's gaze wandered. Surely that was because he was imagining the person who was being close with you. Dionlead, to you, child of Sparta, who is very close with my beloved daughter. It doesn't matter. But, without any doubt, Dionlead was smiling in satisfaction. Surely he was convinced of how the person in the future who listened to his words would answer. In various senses, he was a preposterous person. Perhaps it was just as expected from Yu's father. The recording was fading down. Dian Li's figure melted into empty air. It was as though his soul was going away. Nero, who could feel that Yu cannot take it anymore. Dian Li'd sayonara, Alicia. I wish that the whole world that is surrounding you to be filled with happiness. He said his last word as he completely vanished in this world. Inside the room, a crying voice echoed till the outside the room. 30 minutes later. After 5 minutes of crying, their heads began to hurt. With such an overloaded information of the ancient magic they have received, causing them to pass out. Nero, he starts to groan. Gra, that really hurts my head. I'm really glad they told us about that. You alright, Yu? Or Alicia? Yu, I'm alright, but call me Yu like I said. I don't need my name anymore, because it's the name you chose for me, despite well, of course, we're going to deal with those calamities. No one's going to hurt humanity in my watch. He said quite calmly. Also, I'm not going to help those idiots of the Allies factions. I do not have the slightest intention of being the pawn of them. But it's not like I'm gonna abandon humanity or the people that supported me. Only the people that I have an attachment to, I'll protect them and keep them safe. Does my decision bother you, Yu? This is the new Issei now called Nero. He'll protect the ones he cares about. Everyone else can just go fuck themselves. He'll also protect humanity since he's part of humanity and the factions think they're weak. Well, time to show them. Yu, my home is where you are. I don't care about any other place. She said, refusing instantly since in truth she only cared about being with Nero. Now she wants to focus on her own happiness like her uncle said. Nero, I see, I'm glad. He said with a smile, you know. We now have new magic from the age of the gods, he said with a smirk. Yu, but we don't know how to use them. She said, not understanding how to use them. Hideka, if you wish to learn how to use the ancient magic, then I can teach you, spoke the sword, all of a sudden shocking, the both of them. Nero, are you serious? Nero said while raising the sword up in the air. Hideka, of course master, I can properly teach you and Dian Li, daughter, how to use creation magic, gravity magic, spatial magic, restoration magic, spirit magic, evolution magic, metamorphosis magic and finally concept magic. She said all the 7 magic and what they were. Yu, but how would you teach us to use that type of magic if you don't have a physical form? She asked, since having a teacher is great for them to learn this type of magic, but they won't know how to cast it without seeing it. Nero, oh yeah, do you have a physical form? He began to wonder since Delia had a physical form. Hideka, yes, I can take any form you wish master, she said with a sweet tone of voice. Nero, so what would you like as a human girl? He was very curious about it. Hideka, I'm rather busty, she said calmly but was glaring at him. Hideka, if that is what you wish master. And just like that, Hideka began to gloom with large bosom, dark skin and long white hair, as well as some short pointed ears. Her attire consists of a white short one-piece dress that exposes her shoulders, back and hips, as well as opera gloves and thigh boots with Neapolitan cuffs. Nero was godsmack at her beauty. She surpasses Delia by a mile away. The most noteworthy thing about her was her eyes that were a beautiful purple. Hideka, what do you think master? You? She smiled watching their expression. Nero, I thought your sword form was awesome and beautiful, but your human form is also beautiful and elegant. This comment made Hideka have a blush on her cheeks, but it didn't change her automatic face. You, I'm surprised by your appearance. She said, noticing her pointed ears and dark skin. You're a devil, right? Hideka, yes, I'm a devil. Now I'll teach both of you on using ancient magic, she said as both nodded on the learning this magic. Time skip. They began to train under Hideka, take her lessons on the ancient magic, mastering them, and use concept magic that breaks reality. Currently we can see Nero relaxing on the hot open bath after remembering his training, as well as have Sparta blood inside him, mixed with the fallen human he named after eating monster meat, while discovering the weapon the Liberators created and new weapons he created as well as having a special ring, while also writing a letter to Sikvera about his current situation and seeing Ryudamara new look. Flashback. We can now see Nero testing the ancient magic to master them and be able to use concept magic, but now we're seeing Nero testing metamorphosis magic as he turns his left arm into a dragon before sighing as the memories of him begin. The Red Dragon Emperor flooded into his mind as Nero looks at his right arm and having a smile. Nero, hey Hideka, is there any way for me to revert back to being the son of Sparta? He asked while looking at the person in question who was watching Nero while also checking on Yu, who seemed to create a thunder dragon. Hideka, there is a way, do you wish to know of it? She said, look at him to make sure if this what he really wanted. Nero, yeah, I want it back since I lost it in death. Hideka, you need to stab yourself with rebellion and hold me to remove unnecessary DNA. Nero, you, what? Hideka, it's the only way for Nero to awaken his lock powers. But it's your choice, she said as Nero thought about it before nodding. Nero, let's do this to get what I lost. Are you sure about this? She said, worried for Nero's sake. Nero, this is the only way and I'll do it, he said, holding Rebellion with one hand while looking at Yudeka. Yudeka, a time to turn you back into what you were before, she said, turning into her sword form and to be held by Nero. Nero, look at you, as he starts stabbing himself in the chest with Rebellion, as Nero fell to the floor, as you look with shock, huddle as Yudeka lanyard stab his Devilbringer wrist and start to glow. Suddenly a strange pulse ran to Rebellion that, after a slight red flash, changed the appearance of his grip a little. After this, the geyser. From the aforementioned geyser came Nero, who gave a punch to the air. Yudeka, the demon you carry inside is finally awakened, she said as she released her lanyard as she turned back to human form and watches Nero along with you. Both Yudeka and you saw how Nero took a few steps as he exhaled air with force, noticing how around the body of the aforementioned appeared a kind of white energy. After seeing that, they both covered themselves, watch as Nero, who felt as the inside of his body a new power was beginning to traveled and saturated his body, without noticing how his appearance had a demonic aura around him for a few seconds, while some circles with engravings in another language were expelled from his body, disintegrating into the air. After a few seconds, Nero's appearance changed back and fell unconscious to the ground till he wakes up. Slowly, Nero opening his eyes, as he found himself lying on the ground where he had stabbed himself. Getting up with some difficulty, he began to test his new body. While the girl were watching him with different expressions. You noticed how the white-haired man's eyes had changed, giving him a more smile while Nero was gripping his fist. Yudeka, impressed. Nero has finally awoken completely. What do you mean, Yudeka? You asked, wanting to know what she means. Yudeka, eyes like the night, she replied while Yudeka nodded. Yudeka, that Sparta eyes color, it's only natural art to Shadowbox. He stopped being a Seihaidu to return to who he really is, the son of the Dark Knight. Nero them a smile. As they smiled back at him, while the girls who betrayed Nero Issei felt a great sadness because the Issei they knew is gone. Now they have to deal with Nero. Nero, I'm going to write a letter for Sekvera and Nero began to enter the workshop as he takes a paper and start writing a letter as he called Ryudomaru, who entered with a portal, as its red color was changed into blue, as Nero explained to his familiar as it's a nap, and when he wakes up he would start to work on his weapon. Vehicles, golem and gear. Nero cabin. Sekvera was currently reading a letter from Nero that Ryudomaru came to deliver, as she told this to the rest of the girls, who sighed in relief, finally understanding why he was taking so long. Sekvera, that idiot, trying to get stronger for our sake. But yeah, it's good to know that he's alright, although all he said about the truth of the world really is something hard to believe. Leisha, I must say it is pretty big news, but now everything makes sense, at least some parts. The world hides lots of mysteries. Before they could speak more, Sekvera to receive a call, and she began to take out her cell phone and responded. After her minute, she began to start turning towards the girl. Sekvera, well, come on girls, it's time. Kurumi, what's going on? C-chan. Sekvera, well, Nero new home and business is ready, and I think we should go over there and start its design. Don't worry, everything will be covered by me and Leisha, so when he returns, let's greet him in his new house. And just like that, Sekvera and the rest of the girls went towards the building that would be called Devil May Cry, that will soon be open for business. Back with Nero. Nero, after finishing his nap, he started working in the workshop and was now transmuting all his weapons and aura that Oscar left behind. As he would explain what he made and they left behind for him. First would be Metzele, a Gatling gun based off a M134 minigun. It has 6 barrels that are capable of firing 12,000 30mm caliber rounds a minute. The barrels are made out of a special self-cooling ore, but it still only be fired consecutively for about 5 minutes before overheating. In addition, it needs a long time to cool before it could use it again. Next, Orkan, a shoulder-carried rocket and missile launcher based off a M202 flash-rowing 5 meters cannon that can be held by Nero's Devilbringer. It had 6 arms and a stake that could drill through anything. The stake is made with 4 tons of Byzantium and compressed via compression transmutation. It also has anchors to attach against hard enemies. It was later given gravity magic to help meters tall coffin-shaped shield. It was made from a mixture of Tor stone and Shtar ore and layered with an outer coating of Byzantium. It can be held by Nero's Devilbringer, and it has a retractable stake, that large metallic cross, which has a middle part just like a round shield, with a length of 60 centimeters and width of 40 centimeters. It moves by the same principle as the unmanned reconnaissance planes, and their type specialize in attacking. Inside were loaded with gun and rifle bullets. They were operated using the bracelet where 7 induction stones were installed. Moreover, the surface was covered with minerals which endowed with diamond skin using creation magic, so they could become strong shields as they reacted on the mana from induction stone. When becoming a shield, it becomes a huge flower-like cross. It can also self-destruct when the enemy is distracted by its shooting power and acts like a surprise attack. When 4 points were united, a box-type barrier would be formed. It's not just a simple barrier though, it's the type that shuts out space itself through spatial magic. Takram is a metallic rings that 15 centimeters wide and are enchanted with Gale Claw and Hide presence. It has spatial magic within its ring. Nero can shoot through space with a variety of weapons. It can be controlled remotely through a spirit stone. Hyperion is satellite with a built-in laser and a Xantium spike to release from space, and also shoots a pillar of light with a length of 50 meters and disintegrates whatever it touches. It can be described as a laser beam satellite powered by magic and is a sunlight convergence laser. It is an enormous airframe lens which converges sunlight. It can also charge itself while inside of the treasure trove, which has heat capacity installed in it. Enormous heat which critically overflowed from the treasure trove would be discharged through the launching entrance, where gravity magic was added in to make it discharge towards the ground. Its biggest feature was the fact that it could still converge the sunlight even while it was nighttime. Its secret was due to Oscar Orcus's artificial sun which lit up his rooms, which was created through evolution magic, spatial magic and restoration magic. It has a remote control with an induction stone. Nero found 2 weapons that were left behind, including others, but these 2 Nero decided to keep in his arsenal, as well as built some modifications, and even copies of them. The black barrel weapon that he would use in case for immortal opponents. Next would be Incursio, a better armor than Delia. Black Barrel the gun is a conceptual weapon of natural lifespan, capable of imposing the notion of limited lifespan into the body of near-immortal creatures. Compost of true ether, bullets fired from the gun will disintegrate all instances of grain and ether they come into contact with, ignoring any parameters of beings that intake either substance to deliver direct damage. The greater the quantity of grain, the more damage will be inflicted upon the enemy, and it is impossible to even hold it unless the body is free of such substances. Irving buttstock is extremely versatile in that it can be refitted with a number of different options to allow for use as a sniper rifle. But Nero modified it into a cannon, even made a handgun prototype, story for another time. Demon armor. Incursio, a armor type Tigu that took on the form of a short sword with a chain-linked tassel in its sealed form. Incursio was created from the flesh of Tyrant, a super-class danger beast. It was a prototype for what would later become Grand Chariot. The danger beast's power was so great that its flesh is still alive within the armor, giving the Tigu the title of Demon Dragon armor. Due to its origins as the danger beast Tyrant, Incursio possessed an aptitude for adaptation and evolution. Aside from its standard capabilities, it continued to evolve as the result of battles against several opponents, gaining new forms and abilities as time goes on. Due to being body armor, Incursio had a near indestructible defense, with the only thing able to pierce it being other Tigu. The armor also greatly enhanced the user's physical abilities, such as speed, strength, and agility. The user cutting through danger beasts with ease. Arachne Golem metal spiders be used for infiltration. They could go anywhere through remote control with transmuting and a special adhesive thread that they were equipped with. Golems, and even created a Gundam that will be a story for another time, has new vehicles for land travel. Wrong. Both of you are very beautiful. Sakvara is also beautiful. Both have their good things, so understand that I love you both, and all of you are the most important thing for me. He said seriously and sincerely, in addition to noticing a certain thing. You, that makes me very happy, because I only belong to you, Nero, so look at me as much as you want. She let Nero see every corner of her body, one that, despite still being a little youthful, did not take away the instincts that Nero was awakening. The drops of water ran through her soft skin. They passed over her modest breasts. The drops of water were clinging to her pale and beautiful skin, passed through her small waist, and fell down her small thighs under the eyes of Nero, who could not look away. Hideka, I will never separate myself from you, master, so please enjoy. She smiled, standing next to you, showing her chocolate skin and large breasts that had water between them. As Nero gulped some saliva. That day, Nero released all his lust, and for the rest of the night, only Yu's and Judeka's screams of convenience. Many hours later, the 3 slept in bed completely naked. Yu and Judeka didn't remember well what had happened, but it only took a few seconds for him to remember the long and pleasant session. Someone else behind them were near the magical formation that was near the gate and began to activate it to be able to return to the surface while they held hands. Nearer, Yu, we will finally get out of here. Gave his groan as a nod, in addition to having a smile. Nero began to remember the enemies that are waiting for him outside, old and new, such as the calamities he must fight in Mundus. Not to mention the 2 last weapons left behind from his father, Sparta Yamato and Force Edge, not to mention the traitors they would probably calamities. The liberators did all they can, and now it's up to us. You, that's how it will be. Nero, I will protect you and you will protect me. We will defeat everyone who gets in our way. He said, we will protect each other. She said in her sword form necklace. Nero, we're going to show the super. Nothing will stop us, master, the voice of a certain person behind them commented. Nero and Yu smiled as Judeka just let out a glow from the gem. Now it's time to face all of them. At that moment the magical formation was activated as Nero, Ewan flashed, and disappeared from the Sparta Labyrinth mansion. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.